Have you ever looked at your bank account and felt that familiar ache in your chest? That silent, gnawing panic that rises when the numbers are smaller than they should be? When all that stands between the life you have and the life you want seems to be those missing zeros? You aren't alone in that dark room of financial anxiety. But what if I told you that the prison of perpetual financial struggle isn't built by your income, but by something far more insidious? There are people who make 10 times what you do who still feel broke, and there are others who make half your salary who feel abundant. The difference isn't in their paychecks, it's in something deeper, something the ancient Stoics understood that we've forgotten. You're not broke because you don't make enough. You're broke because you're trapped in a war between craving and self-command, and right now craving is winning. This isn't about budgeting apps or investment strategies. This is about the invisible chains you've wrapped around yourself, chains that no raise, no promotion, no windfall can break unless you first understand their nature. Are you the master of your desires, or are you their servant? Are you the author of your financial story, or merely a character being written by forces you don't even recognize? That anxiety you feel when you check your balance, it's not about the money, it's about the freedom you've surrendered, one unconscious purchase at a time. So come with me into this uncomfortable truth. There's a reason you're still broke, and it's both simpler and more profound than you've been led to believe. You've been sold a beautiful lie. The lie that says your financial problems would disappear if only you had more. More income, more opportunity, more luck. But this is the first illusion you must shatter. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who was paradoxically one of the wealthiest men in Rome, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." These words, penned nearly 2,000 years ago, strike at the heart of your financial suffering. Look around you. What surrounds you? Not just physical objects, but dreams purchased on credit, experiences bought to impress others, subscriptions that accumulate like silent parasites on your bank account. Each transaction wasn't just an exchange of money, it was a confession of who controls whom in the relationship between you and your desires. The Stoics didn't despise wealth. They despised being controlled by the pursuit of it. There's a vast difference between having money and being mastered by the craving for more, a difference that explains why some millionaires feel impoverished, while some with modest means feel rich. Think about the last thing you bought that you didn't need. What was the voice in your head saying? Was it speaking of lack, of not enoughness? Was it promising that this purchase would finally make you feel complete, respected, secure? That voice isn't your friend. It's the voice of a culture that profits from your perpetual sense of insufficiency. A culture that needs you to remain financially and emotionally hungry, so you'll keep consuming what it's selling. When did you start believing that your worth was tied to what you own? When did you accept that happiness comes from acquisition rather than appreciation? When did you surrender your financial sovereignty for the hollow promise of status or momentary pleasure? These aren't idle questions. They're the first step toward understanding why the hole in your bank account is really a hole in your philosophy of living. Your relationship with money isn't just financial, it's deeply psychological. The way you spend, save, earn, and think about money reveals the hidden architecture of your mind. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who explored the depths of the human psyche, observed that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your financial situation isn't fate. It's the physical manifestation of unconscious patterns. These patterns were formed long before you had your first job. They took shape in childhood when you observed how your parents handled money. They were reinforced by every advertisement that linked happiness to purchasing. They were cemented by social circles where spending was the price of belonging. Now these patterns operate beneath your awareness, driving financial decisions that feel like choices, but are actually automated responses. Why do you feel that rush when you buy something new? Why the temporary high, followed by the emptiness that demands another purchase? This isn't random. It's a psychological loop that keeps you consuming and keeps you broke. The dopamine hit from buying something new is real. The brain chemistry doesn't lie. But it's a false signal telling you that acquisition equals satisfaction, when in reality, it's setting you up for the next craving, and the next, and the next. Your brain has been hijacked by a system that profits from your perpetual dissatisfaction. The more you buy seeking fulfillment, the less fulfilled you feel, creating a perfect cycle of consumption that drains your accounts while never filling the void it promises to address. When was the last time a purchase actually delivered the lasting satisfaction it promised? When did more stuff ever equal more peace? When did reaching your income goal ever free you from wanting more? The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's practical wisdom that could transform your financial reality. Because the truth is, your financial suffering comes not from having too little, but from the inability to find sufficiency in what you already have. But let's be honest. This isn't just about philosophical ideals. This is about the very real pain of financial struggle, the anxiety of unpaid bills, the shame of declined cards, the suffocating weight of debt that follows you like a shadow. These experiences aren't imaginary, and acknowledging them isn't weakness. It's the starting point for genuine change. The Stoics didn't preach denial of reality. They taught something far more powerful: the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, put it plainly: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. You can't control the economy. You can't control the job market. You can't control the cost of living or the financial circumstances you were born into. But you do control something far more consequential to your financial life: your response to desire. Every time desire rises within you, for the new phone, the nicer car, the bigger house, the designer clothes, you stand at a crossroads of financial destiny. Will you be mastered by the craving, or will you master it? This isn't about denial or deprivation. It's about freedom. It's about breaking the invisible chains that keep you working for things that don't serve your deeper purpose. Look around at your life. How much of what you own truly enhances your existence? How much of it was purchased to fill a void, impress others, or soothe an uncomfortable emotion? How much of your financial struggle comes from serving desires that were never truly yours to begin with? The Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you to live in poverty. It invites you to live with purpose, to align your resources with your values rather than squandering them on fleeting wants. Financial freedom isn't having unlimited wealth. It's having complete sovereignty over your relationship with money and the desires money can fulfill. It's the power to say enough and truly mean it. When was the last time you felt that sense of enough? When did you last look at what you have and feel genuine sufficiency rather than nagging lack? That capacity for sufficiency, for finding fullness in the present rather than perpetually reaching for more, isn't just philosophical. It's the most practical financial skill you could develop. The greatest obstacle to financial freedom isn't your income. It's the constant sense of comparison that makes whatever you have seem insufficient. We live in an age of unprecedented exposure to the lifestyles of others. Every day you scroll through carefully curated images of wealth, success, and acquisition. Each image sends a subtle message. This is what success looks like. This is what you should want. This is what you lack. This isn't harmless entertainment. It's a direct assault on your capacity for contentment. It's a machine designed to keep you feeling perpetually behind, perpetually lacking, perpetually broke, no matter how much you actually have. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has little, but he who desires more, that is the pauper." The comparison trap turns everyone into paupers because there will always be someone with more, something newer, something you've been convinced you should want. Think about how many of your financial decisions are influenced by what others have, or what others will think. How much of your spending is an attempt to keep up with an external standard rather than to fulfill your authentic needs? The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus observed, "Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little." When your sense of enough is determined by comparison rather than by genuine necessity or joy, you create the perfect conditions for perpetual financial suffering. This is the invisible tax you pay on comparison. The money spent on appearances, the resources allocated to status, The financial choices made from the fear of falling behind rather than the clarity of personal values. What if you stopped paying this tax? What if your financial decisions were guided entirely by what brings you genuine value rather than by what others possess or what society expects? How different would your bank account look? The path to financial freedom doesn't begin with making more. It begins with wanting differently, with breaking free from the comparison trap that keeps you perpetually dissatisfied with what you have. Now let's address the counter-argument that often arises. This sounds like settling, like giving up on ambition and growth, like resigning myself to less than I deserve. This misunderstanding reveals how deeply we've confused craving with purpose, acquisition with progress. The Stoic approach isn't about settling for less. It's about defining success on your own terms rather than chasing someone else's definition of it. Consider the difference between these two mindsets. The craving mind says, "I'll be happy when I have more." The self-commanded mind says, "I'll use what I have to create the life I want." One waits for fulfillment in some future acquisition. The other creates fulfillment through present alignment with values. Look at history's truly impactful figures. Did Gandhi's power come from what he owned? Did Marie Curie's discoveries depend on her consumer purchases? Did Martin Luther King Jr.'s influence stem from his material possessions? The people who change the world, and who experience genuine fulfillment in the process, aren't those who accumulate the most, but those who align their resources most purposefully with their values. This isn't about lowering your standards. It's about elevating them beyond the superficial measures of consumption to the deeper metrics of meaning, purpose, and impact. You don't need to reject material comfort or financial security. You simply need to put them in their proper place, as tools for living rather than as the purpose of life. When you do this, something remarkable happens. Your financial decisions become clearer. Your spending aligns with your values. Your resources serve your purpose rather than being drained by momentary desires. And paradoxically, this shift often leads to greater financial abundance. Not because you're focused on accumulating more, but because you're no longer squandering what you have on things that don't truly matter to you. As Marcus Aurelius advised, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. This isn't resignation, it's liberation. Freedom from the belief that your worth, your happiness, or your success depends on what you own rather than on how you live. Let's examine a hard truth that few financial advisors will tell you. For many, being broke is not just a financial condition. It's an identity, a familiar pain, a known territory. There can be a strange comfort in financial struggle, not because it's pleasant, but because it's familiar. It confirms stories you may have internalized long ago, that you're not good with money, that wealth isn't for people like you, that struggling is your lot in life. The psychologist Carl Jung noted that people don't really want to be cured of their neuroses because those neuroses have become part of their identity. Similarly, some part of you may resist financial well-being because financial struggle has become woven into your sense of self. Ask yourself, what would change in your life if money were no longer a source of stress? Who would you be if you weren't the person who struggles financially? What excuses would you lose? What actions would you need to take? What responsibility would you have to assume? Sometimes being broke serves a purpose beyond the financial. It can be an excuse for not pursuing dreams, a justification for playing small, or even a way of connecting with others who share similar struggles. Recognizing these hidden payoffs doesn't mean you're consciously choosing financial hardship. It means you're becoming aware of the complex psychological terrain that shapes your financial life. The first step toward lasting change is radical honesty. Can you admit the ways in which financial struggle has become comfortable, familiar, or even useful to you? Can you see how certain financial habits, even destructive ones, serve emotional needs that have nothing to do with money? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Financial transformation begins with reimagining your identity, with seeing yourself as someone capable of wealth, worthy of abundance, and responsible for creating it. This isn't magical thinking. It's recognizing that your financial reality is shaped by beliefs and behaviors that began as choices but have calcified into habits that feel like fate. Breaking free from financial suffering requires more than budgeting skills. It requires the courage to question the identity you've built around money and to intentionally construct a new relationship with wealth, one based on self-command rather than craving, on purpose rather than patterns. Let's look at how this plays out in real lives, both in failure and success. Consider the lottery winners who end up broke within years of their windfall. Their story reveals that more money, without the inner discipline to manage desire, simply accelerates financial destruction. They moved from ordinary broke to extraordinarily broke because their relationship with money remained unchanged, even as their bank account temporarily swelled. Or look at the celebrities and athletes who earn millions only to file for bankruptcy. Their income was enormous, but their capacity for self-command was insufficient. They remained servants to desire rather than masters of it. Now contrast this with someone like Warren Buffett, who continues to live in the same modest house he bought in 1958, despite being one of the wealthiest people in the world. His financial choices aren't driven by status or momentary cravings, but by a clear set of values and a remarkable capacity for saying enough. Or consider Diogenes, the ancient Greek philosopher who chose to live with minimal possessions not from poverty, but from the recognition that wanting less was the surest path to freedom. When Alexander the Great offered him anything he desired, Diogenes asked only that Alexander step aside, as he was blocking the sunlight. This wasn't deprivation, it was mastery over desire that even a king couldn't match. These examples aren't meant to glorify either extreme wealth or extreme simplicity. They illustrate that financial well-being isn't determined by how much you have, but by the relationship between what you have and what you desire. The Stoic approach offers a middle path, neither rejecting material well-being nor being enslaved by its pursuit. It's about cultivating the inner discipline to want what serves your deeper purpose, while releasing the manufactured desires that keep you financially and emotionally depleted. This discipline isn't about willpower or rigid control. It's about clarity, seeing through the false promises of consumption to recognize what truly brings value to your life. When you develop this clarity, you naturally stop hemorrhaging resources on things that don't matter. You automatically redirect your financial energy toward what genuinely enhances your existence. And in doing so, you create the conditions for both material sufficiency and inner abundance. The path from financial struggle to financial freedom begins with a single, transformative question. Is this desire mine, or was it given to me? Most of what you think you want wasn't freely chosen. It was programmed by marketing, social pressure, and cultural narratives about what constitutes success or happiness. These externally imposed desires create an inner division, a constant tension between your authentic needs and the artificial wants you've been conditioned to pursue. This division is the battleground where financial freedom is won or lost. Every time you act from conditioned wanting, rather than from authentic valuing, you sacrifice a piece of your financial sovereignty. The 13th century mystic poet Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Your financial wounds, the debt, the struggle, the perpetual sense of not enough, can become the entry point for a profound awakening if you're willing to look deeply at their source. That source isn't external circumstances. It's the invisible inner split between the wanting self and the valuing self, between craving and purpose. Healing this split doesn't happen through more income, though that may help temporarily. It happens through the practice of conscious choosing, of running each desire through the filter of your deepest values before acting on it. This practice isn't easy in a culture designed to bypass your conscious mind and trigger automatic consumption. It requires vigilance, self-awareness, and the willingness to pause between stimulus and response. But each time you pause, each time you ask, "Is this desire aligned with what I truly value?" you reclaim a piece of your financial power. You move from being the unconscious consumer of external wants to being the conscious creator of your financial reality. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing to himself, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? not to deprive himself, but to ensure that his resources, including his attention and energy, were directed toward what truly mattered. This ongoing practice of discernment, of separating authentic needs from programmed wants, gradually transforms your relationship with money. Spending becomes more intentional. Saving becomes more natural. Financial decisions align with purpose rather than being driven by impulse. And ironically, this inner shift often leads to greater external abundance, not because you're focused on accumulating more, but because you're no longer unconsciously dissipating what you have through misaligned choices. The path to financial freedom, then, isn't about restricting yourself from what you want. It's about liberating yourself to want what actually serves your deepest good. As this understanding deepens, you begin to see that there are really two economies operating in your life. There's the outer economy of dollars and cents, income and expenses, assets and liabilities. This is the economy that financial advisors focus on, that budgeting apps track, that conventional wisdom addresses. But beneath this visible economy lies a more fundamental one, the inner economy of attention, desire, and meaning. This economy determines how the outer one functions. It shapes every financial choice, every spending impulse, every relationship with material things. When your inner economy is disordered, when attention is scattered, desires are unconscious, and meaning is sought through acquisition, your outer economy will reflect this disorder regardless of your income level. But when your inner economy is aligned, when attention is focused, desires are conscious, and meaning is derived from purpose rather than possession, your outer economy naturally moves toward order and sufficiency. This is what the ancient wisdom traditions understood that modern financial advice often misses. The Stoics, Buddhists, Taoists, and many others recognized that material well-being flows from inner alignment, not the other way around. As Lao Tzu, founder of Taoism, observed, "He who knows he has enough is rich." This knowing isn't intellectual, it's experiential. It's the lived recognition that fulfillment comes from aligning with your authentic values rather than from chasing external validation or momentary pleasure. This alignment creates a profound shift in how money flows through your life. Resources that were once drained by impulse purchases, status symbols, and empty distractions are naturally redirected toward what brings genuine value, toward investments in your growth, contributions to causes you care about, and experiences that deepen your connection to life. The result isn't deprivation, it's the opposite, a growing sense of abundance that comes not from having more, but from wanting more purposefully. As you practice this alignment, you may find that your financial situations improves not because you're fixated on wealth, but because you're no longer unconsciously sabotaging it. Money begins to serve your purpose rather than being constantly sacrificed to momentary desires. This is the paradox of true financial freedom. It comes not from unlimited wealth, but from the limited, conscious directing of your resources toward what matters most. Not from the capacity to fulfill every desire, but from the wisdom to desire what truly fulfills. So where do you go from here? How do you begin the journey from financial reactivity to financial sovereignty? First, recognize that this is an inner journey before it's an outer one. No budget, investment strategy, or income increase will solve a problem that stems from your relationship with desire itself. Begin by observing your financial triggers, the situations, emotions, or thoughts that prompt unconscious spending. Notice the gap between stimulus and response, between desire and action. In that gap lies your power to choose differently. Practice the Stoic discipline of proairesis, the capacity to withhold assent from impressions. When a desire arises, don't immediately identify with it. Question it. Where did it come from? What does it promise? Is that promise aligned with your deeper values? This questioning isn't about judgment. It's about clarity. It's about distinguishing between desires that serve your purpose and those that merely respond to external programming. As you develop this clarity, start to consciously realign your financial choices with your authentic values. This doesn't mean rejecting material well-being. It means ensuring that your material resources serve what truly matters to you rather than being dissipated on what doesn't. Remember that this realignment isn't about perfection. It's a practice, one that deepens over time as your awareness grows. There will be missteps and regressions. What matters is the overall direction of your financial consciousness, not its moment-to-moment perfection. Surround yourself with perspectives that support this consciousness. The default cultural narrative is one of more is better, of acquisition as success. Deliberately, seek out counter-narratives, voices that remind you of what actually creates fulfillment. Finally, recognize that true financial freedom is an inside job. It's not about what you have, but about your relationship to what you have. It's about the inner shift from craving to self-command, from unconscious wanting to conscious choosing. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's the work of a lifetime. But each step on this path brings greater financial clarity, greater alignment between resources and values, and ultimately, greater freedom from the cycle of wanting and disappointment that keeps so many perpetually broke, regardless of their income. If this room has offered you something, a moment of recognition, a glimpse into your relationship with money, a new perspective on what drives your financial choices, I invite you to pause, to breathe, to let these insights settle. The journey from financial struggle to financial sovereignty begins with awareness, not with earning more or spending less, but with seeing clearly the inner patterns that shape your outer reality. This seeing may not be comfortable. It may challenge identities you've built, stories you've told yourself, habits that feel like home. But in that challenge lies the possibility of genuine transformation, of a new relationship with money built on clarity rather than conditioning, on purpose rather than patterns. If a particular idea has resonated within you, let it echo. Let it work its way into your consciousness. Let it inform your next financial choice, your next response to desire, your next opportunity to align your resources with what truly matters to you. And if you feel moved to share what's awakened in you while in this room, leave your reflection below, not as a comment, but as a step in your journey, a declaration of your commitment to financial consciousness. Perhaps write, "I choose financial sovereignty," as a reminder that true wealth begins not with having more, but with choosing more consciously what you already have. The path from broke to abundant isn't paved with more money. It's paved with more awareness, more alignment, more purposeful choosing. It's the path from being controlled by desire to commanding it, from serving the craving mind to embodying the sovereign self. What part of you needed to hear these words today? What financial pattern has been asking for your attention? What desire has been controlling your choices rather than being controlled by them? The answer lives in the quiet space within you, the space that opened, even if just for a moment, as you sat in this room, the space where financial freedom begins.